Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason. Today, I've got a match that was submitted over on my Discord here. We're going to be taking a look at the tried and true, the classic Supreme Isthmus. Now, spawning in the backline in the air position right here, a blue commander that goes by the name of Vanilla Chan. All the way across the map, spawning on the beachhead position, goes by the name of Sephi. Now already there was a little bit of some shenanigans. There was a little bit of discussion between the blue team players. Carl Barks managed to lock into this position, and Vanilla Chan asked for it. Carl Barks declined, and then yeah, apparently that's where we're at right now. So if you're wondering where the tension is between these two players, it's Vanilla Chan wanting that spot but not getting it, and Carl Barks holding on to it, planning to hand out some T2s. Curious to see exactly how that interaction will work. If you're not willing to teamwork with your team, you're definitely putting yourself on a little bit of the back foot. Now, as far as the front line goes, looking a little bit better here for the blue team. We do have Aggressa and Mork going to be going up against each other, or, well, going to be going up with each other here on the front lines. We have Mork coming in at 2 true skill, but plenty of chevrons here, at the very least indicating some experience, and Aggressa coming in at 12 with a silver tail, likewise indicating some serious playtime. Ajo, the maroon commander, as well as Josh Dub, the brown, going to be going up right against them. Definitely on the lower end as far as the open skill value goes, but it should be a good, fun match regardless. Typically when people send matches on over to me, it's because some interesting stuff happens. Already I'm suspecting that we have a little bit of a shenanigans here. As you can see, a lot of metal is being handed around. Yeah, Ling Chrono, the purple commander, is handing a bunch of metal to Carl Barks, so this must be a plot here to get those T2 up and running here. We're going for Cortex T2, so eventually we'll have a nice little eco in the backline here. Always curious when somebody says they're going to go for eco, whether that means that they're going to go for eco into T3 in a rush, or whether it means they're just going to go hard eco and then maybe play an ultra late game sort of a style. Maybe there needs to be a differentiation between those words. There's also needs to be a solution to the problem of somebody loading in first and managing to get the good spot every single time. Now that I have a beefy computer, I benefit from that privilege, but certainly I know how it feels to be on the other end once long ago when my computer was quite a bit less powerful. I wonder if there's any plans in the works to find a way to solve that issue. Maybe a randomizer thing that puts everybody in a specific spot. Maybe everybody chooses their spots and then it randomly shuffles everybody at the last second. That could be an interesting solution, but then again, that would kind of ruin your plans as you get ready to plot out your base, wouldn't it? So I'm not sure if there's a really clever solution there, but I'm sure if anybody's going to come up with it, it'll be the wonderful Beyond Our Reason community. Vanilla Chan has not gone into air, as usually that spot does. However, JMH across the map and in the mirrored position certainly has. Maroon Commander moving forward here, claiming, was that a coconut? What on earth was that? It looked like a coconut. I guess it was just a rock, but it looks very hairy. Ajo, the Maroon Commander, is stepping forward here and building these metal extractors. Moving forward because, of course, we're going for a vehicle bay. And these vehicle bays are very expensive in the metal department, cost quite a lot in order to get up and running. So I like to see this commander moving far forward. We don't see any of that one mex grunt spam that's been really popular recently. Just good old-fashioned vehicle play from just about everybody. Yeah, in fact, everybody on the front line playing vehicles. All right. Should be an interesting brawl, certainly a high HP brawl, which is always fun to see. Usually, though, we do have a mix. We have some bots, we have some vehicles, we have a little bit of everything on the fronts. This is just going to be a good old-fashioned duking of the bots, or duking of the vehicles, I guess. I also happen to notice it's Armada commanders for the red versus Cortex commanders for the blue. I wonder if that means we'll finally get to know the age-old matchup of, yeah, which one is better, which one is stronger. With the war raging on for thousands and thousands of years, I'd be surprised if this one battle tells us the result. Spy plane sneaks by over here. My goodness, the anti-air rocket on a light anti-air vehicle for the Navy can't even shoot down the simplest of aircraft. Quite pathetic. This is a build we actually haven't seen in a long while. Zathrid getting into the water out here. Yeah, I love to see it. Sending a submarine across the map, or I imagine that's what this submarine building here is going to be used for. Very expensive to field that first submarine, but once you get it up and running, it can definitely prove extremely valuable. Now, the lack of an air player here in the backline in Vanilla Chan's spot, we are into air, by the way, at this point, just a little bit slower to get there, means you're not going to have transports quite as quickly to get these islands. So you can see we have a couple of fighters patrolled around all over the place just to make sure that any transports that would send a commander over in that direction have the potential to be shot down. I do believe it takes 3 shots from a T1 fighter in order to kill a transport, so that means you'd have to be absolutely on top of it with your micro at the very least. Otherwise, you'd have to, at the very least, make sure that you're using them at the right place and at the right time. Looks like we do not have the lasher change here. I believe there's a little bit of heat seeking going on. Yeah, a little bit of a curve to that rocket's trajectory. Means that these blitzes are not going to be able to escape those rockets by moving out of the way. But it's not like the Lasher really does that much damage. Its DPS, startlingly low. Basically just used as a scouting unit, or maybe like a forward observer unit. That's kind of its role, a little better put. Unicode Snowman in an awkward position here. Yeah, Blitz is just running right through from the front line. This is a classic build as well here. You put the build power down right here, and then you go ahead and go for the AMXs as well as the T2, the Geo, and the build turret can help with all of it. But there are the Blitzes in the back line. And this is tremendous. Another one taking out some more mexes back here. Excellent aggression right here from the Maroon Commander. Yeah, that's really, really nicely done. Sending these blitzes across can cause so much damage in the early game. It can really hinder those economies. I love to see it right here from the Maroon Commander, who's keeping his eye on these open lanes that you have to try and sneak some units forward. We do have the HLT up and running right now, though, on the front line, so at the very least that stabilizes things a little bit, but it's not going to be like it's impossible to defeat, right? A couple shell shockers, even just enough medium tanks, and that's going to go down pretty quickly. We've actually got a naval contest on both sides right here. Feels like it's been a while since we've seen this. But here we go, some submarines firing away. There is a destroyer out already for the Purple Commander, so those submarines have to avoid it. Oh yeah, we don't have enough submarines to fight that destroyer head on, I don't believe. About 8% per shot from those submarines, whereas the destroyer does quite a bit more. Yeah, submarine's gonna fall right here, and that is an expensive catch right there for the Hot Pink Commander. Well, the catch is on behalf of the Purple Commander, but catching the Hot Pink units. We do have to catch them, though. There we go. Shutting down those submarines, very, very expensive to start. I believe those are 500 metal apiece. Let me just take a quick peek here. Yeah, 580 metal apiece for each one of those. Makes it very, very costly to lose those on the front line, so that's definitely going to hurt our Hot Pink hero, Zathrid, quite a bit. Aju losing this front line right here, as units have not been masked quite yet. We do have a bunch of Whistlers coming up, the counterpart to the Thrasher? No, sorry, the Lasher. Must be thinking of something else. Josh Dub almost finished with a gauntlet here. Trying desperately to put the finishing touches on it. We need just a little bit more energy here. You can see metal being handed over to Unicode Snowman to try and get these T2s up and running. This is exactly what that constructor is for. See, it can reach just barely every one of these metal extractors here. It's in the perfect spot to help out the lab, help with the metal extractors, help with the geothermal. It's the perfect place to put down a build turret, just in case you're playing that spot on any other time or in any other place, playing on the Supreme Isthmus. Almost called it the Supreme Straits. Not what it goes by anymore. Long, long ago, but not anymore. Now you have a nice little build in your back pocket to use. HLT will go down, but the Janus missiles are resounding. And there go all those incisors right here. Shell Shockers moving forward to try and apply pressure here, but the Gauntlet is already up and running. And there it goes, firing away. Doing about, what was that, about 30% damage or so before it got healed up by this forward construction turret. Quite nice indeed. Exploiter being set up rapidly here by the build power of that construction turret means that this will hold the front line quite nicely. It's also tanky enough, I do believe, to actually withstand fire from the Gauntlet and still be repaired back up to full strength, and an agitator is coming up as well. We also have a radar jammer here to keep everybody safe. Big naval battle up on this northern side. Yeah, those purple forces have been built en masse, and there's just not enough production. Probably the reason why we don't see this build all too often, because this is extremely likely to happen. Almost always the commander on the sea lane, or rather on the beachhead lane, going to have quite a bit more production, quite a bit quicker than you will. And if you lose even a single one of those early fights, it can mean the difference between winning and losing this lane. And now you can see at least a couple thousand metal is down the drain right here for the Hot Pink Commander, who's now going to have to try and rebuild. Does have the geothermal up and running, so that's quite nice. But the economy essentially hinges on how quickly we can get a T2 up and running. T2 does finish up, by the way, for Zombie. We also have the T2 lab up and running right here for Anur. Going to be going for an anti-nuke at the same time here. Okay, good to know. Good to remember. We have an anti-nuke coming up for the Yellow Commander as well. Did we spy a nuke or anything? Is that why we're so cautious about the nuke rush? I am curious. I tend to forget my own anti-nukes quite often. Usually takes a nuclear missile to the face to remind me to put one down, but usually it's also quite a bit too late. It's an easy thing to forget because it's obviously out of sight and out of mind, but once it's hitting you pretty hard, it's really, really difficult to neglect. Look at the Janus is firing away, doing a nice little bit of splash damage actually to that commander. Oh, why are we throwing them away though? Oh no. We've thrown the Januses into the belly of the beast here. Just being blasted down right here. If we had targeted down the commander, maybe we could have killed everything right here, but instead these Januses are just going to fire away at whatever they can. to be fair, actually doing a significant amount of damage. The LLTs go down and the gauntlet is taking fire as well. Should probably prioritize the constructor here. It's a desperate move to save the gauntlet right now, but with dual agitator up and running, there's no way. Ajun not paying attention. Maroon Commander goes down, wiping out the entire army right there. A little bit of an APM stall for the Maroon Commander. Down goes everything that they held once near and dear, and it looks like it's going to be the might of the Cortex Empire winning the front line in the T1 era. T2 units should be en route, though. We do have T2 mexes coming up right now, and we also have this T2 lab slowly working on some T2 mexes right here. We don't have that build turret right here, which would have been extremely useful. We went instead for some Twitchers, which are quite powerful, but obviously not exactly the same thing. Zathrid went for the bot lab over here on the island spot. Interesting choice. Not the end of the world, and there's certainly some cheeky builds you can go for, especially getting out into the Navy over on this corner. If you can hide a Navy over here, you can actually do a surprise attack and take down this opponent. The time slot for that is exactly right now, though. We need to see those units heading across the map, and obviously, most of them actually being deconstructed. Oh, I love to see this. I pointed this out several times. It's one of those things that I love to see. When you have a T1 army that's no longer being effective, like the Purple Commander, who just doesn't have any use for those T1 units anymore, you might as well disband all of them, demolish all of them, and eat them all back up. You get a full refund if you eat a unit rather than it being turned to wreckage and reclaimed. Means that you can go for really cheeky T2 transitions even without having a crazy advantage, like a crazy positional advantage. You risk, of course, your enemy pushing in while you have a substantially lessened force, but that only means that you get that T2 transition up and underway a whole hell of a lot quicker. Geothermal is claimed right here. The Lasher slowly but very, very surely blasting it down. 1 or 2% per missile. There we go. Does finally fall, bringing down the constructor as well. The destroyers firing away at the base over here, making it very uncomfortable for the Maroon Commander, who is desperately hoping that the T2 support will help them eventually. It's going to take a good long while, though. Anti-nuke up and running right here for the blue team as well. We're getting cautious about it. We have an APHIS coming up right here for the yellow commander, though. Just going for that proper late game. We have about a 12 to 13 minute APHIS. Yeah, we'll call it 11:40 minute APHIS. Looks like that's the plot right now. And we have the anti-nukes coming up. T2 sprinters running across the map. Well, across the map. They're running to their front line. Isthmus, a surprisingly large map. It is really a startlingly large map. Hounds are absolutely what we should be going for here. These menus, they all got updated pictures, and man, they look cool. Look at all these new units. Sorry, I just got to take a second to appreciate how cool these menus are. The Fat Boy, all of them essentially firing their guns, which is so neat. But it also looks like we just got some really high-def renders of everything. Really cool to see. I love it. Hounds are what we want to go for here. Hounds are going to be quite a bit better at dealing, especially with these boats, but also with any of this T1 trash holding up the front line here. Commander has been down for a good long while. Not sure why Aggress isn't pushing forward, as the name might imply, and capturing, well, that commander's metal. Turning it back into a T2 transition, certainly. Yeah, there we go. We do have a T2 lab coming up right here, and that's the advantage that T2 transition gets you. Or, sorry, that aggression on the front line gets you. It gets you a T2 transition. T1 air steel being pumped out in mass. We're just going for mass wind turbine, which is not the end of the world. Wind turbine's very powerful, obviously, especially on maps with very high wind speed, just for their relatively cheap nature as well as their spam ability. On maps with a whole lot of space, you can just put down 100 of them, and they don't tax your economy all too much when you're actually building them. Probably one of the most important aspects of them. Only a couple of metal per second, only a couple hundred energy per second to actually put wind turbines together, and it makes them very, very efficient. T2 finally upgraded here for the Hot Pink Commander, but very, very slowly, and we already have T2 naval economy up and running right here for the Purple Commander, who is probably going to exacerbate that advantage even further as the land economy grows. And, oh, okay, we have experimental units enabled. I hadn't noticed at first, but there we go. Yeah, we have the some of the experimental extra units here, the T2 wind turbine in particular, but also we should have a whole bunch of other fun stuff in here. Yeah, the epic bulwarks and the quad guards and all that sort of stuff. Very cool to see. Haven't seen any of it so far in this game, but it'd be pretty funny to see it because I'm sure it would catch a lot of these players off guard. There's not a great way of knowing about those extra units until you get into that T2 era. I guess Armada technically has the Zapper too, might indicate that we have extra units enabled. Very good stuff. A Fat Boy's been produced. Now, the Fat Boy is not the worst option here. Obviously, quite a lot of range makes it quite viable here, but very low speed, so not a tremendous amount of DPS. Single big burst of damage, similar to a sharpshooter, but in more of an AoE fashion. Important, however, that we remember to constantly be keeping that Fat Boy well patrolled and well repaired. We want to make sure that there's Always Resbot's working on it. My goodness, what a plan we have here. The ultimate spambulatory will be coming up right now for the yellow commander. I guess figuring if they can't win this game with T3, there is always the option to go ahead and just win it with a whole bunch of T1. Not the end of the world, but it's going to take a good long while before that queue finishes up. It's certainly possible to get that queue finished up. I've certainly seen worse. But yeah, we're looking at a late game here. Aggressa, not living up to the name, I have to say. Petering out the push right here, and in the end of the day, it's going to be Mork who actually manages to reclaim this commander's medal. I'm glad somebody is reclaiming that commander's medal at the very least. Resbot's trying desperately to eat up all this metal over here, but these destroyers still haven't been dealt with. Hounds. We're going for Mass Gunslinger. Mass Gunslinger, always a little bit shaky. Gunslinger is very, very flimsy. Their armor is relatively paper thin. They have, the type of sustain they have is all from their regeneration. So regen tanking essentially revolves around dipping into combat and then pulling out before any of your units die. And oftentimes in bar, that's a really difficult decision to make, especially with high power artillery coming online, like the Quakers, which are now rolling up to the front line here from Mork. I would say that those Gunslingers are going to be well out of fashion here any minute. Still a naval battle over here on the high seas. Svartalov. No, sorry. Svartalov. Yeah, Svartalov. Or Svartalv? We'll go with Svartalv. Goes ahead here and goes into a T2 lab. No flag here either. Must be playing from some proxy server on the moon or something. No unit production right now. Instead, going for some T2. We have some static defenses coming up as well. That's always a good precaution. You never know when your enemy's going to hit you with a mass Marauder rush. Certainly a viable strategy at this point in the game. We could have already had 6 or 7 Marauder across the map right here if that was the build we're going for. Luckily for the red team, not exactly the build we're going for. We're going for mass APHIS in the backline here. Just finished up our second APHIS for Zombie 247B. Is that the number of the planet from Subnautica? I feel like that reminds me of it. I have a whole playlist of my playthrough of Subnautica, in case you're curious to watch that game. One of my favorite games of all time, and the deep blue ocean seas of Supreme Isthmus remind me of that all the time. Argument number 1 for why you probably shouldn't invest too heavily in gunslingers once you're already on T2 tech, their utter devastation. Yeah, you can see they tend to be, unfortunately, quite outclassed in the T2 era. Very, very good at T1. Lose efficiency quickly in the T2 era. Things just have too much damage per second. There's too little kill time. Oh my goodness, the missiles coming out of that advanced exploiter just ravaged this massive ball of Sheldon. That's why it's so important to keep those spread out here. Easy to clump your Sheldon up like that and think it's efficient, but really what you need to do is spread them out into a big concave just to mitigate that DPS like that. Advanced construction turrets coming up here. Always forget those are an option too. When you have those extra units enabled, there's a whole bunch of fun stuff in the T2 era that you can use. We have some interesting fortifications coming up here. Yeah, the Naval Shark's Teeth. Gonna be great for shutting down boats, I guess, pushing in that direction. I think the T2 boats can just push right through them though, so I'm not sure exactly how effective that's gonna be. But my goodness, 43 platypus incoming. Are we ever going to use them for anything is the question on everybody's mind. Aphises coming up here. Some judgment I smell here from Vanilla Chan. Definitely making a little bit of an enemy out of his friend. Always got to be careful about that. Ruining your team's mood can be very, very, very destructive to the teamwork environment. Let me tell you. As someone who's played at least one game of League of Legends, let me tell you, got to keep those teammates happy. That is to say, there's not always a way to keep them happy. Sometimes there are some people you just can't appease. And the best thing you can do is probably just mute them. Missile boats, I feel like these are late. Where have the missile boats been? Yeah, you know what? We've had this T2 lab up for a good long while, and I saw those missile boats producing for a while there. But it feels like they've been not very effective so far. Usually these are used to shut down the geothermal first and foremost, and then eventually poke away at these bases. The reason we usually see them doing that is because it's a really good idea. You can use them to effectively shut down anything that you want. And here they are. I mean, I guess they're going to be able to shut down the base over here for Zuthrid, so that's not bad. Most of this is just a commander and a T1 lab and some T1 mexes here. Not that the purple commander knows that, obviously. These are probably just radar signatures to the purple view. Yeah, well, we kind of know that. There was some scouting earlier, but I guess you never know what's actually going to be building over there. So we have, at the same exact time, mass ducks being built right here, okay. And then we also have mass platypus being built over here. So there is a plan. It's a strange one, but it is a plan. We also have some naval landmines. When's the last time you got a good look at one of those? Yeah, they sit on their little buoy right there. They have a little spiky top. Yeah, they're a heavy landmine. I think that's all that there is, actually. I think there's only, yeah, only heavy landmines, which makes sense. Pretty much everything in the naval catalog is worth a heavy landmine. What I mean by worth, I guess, is, yeah, you're not going to overkill much with heavy landmines. Virtually the only things you'll overkill are things like gunboats, the skaters, things like that. Ducks under the water having a really hard time, actually. The build power keeping this boat alive is actually really annoying right now for these destroyers. There we go. We have an advanced torpedo launcher set up here. These ships aren't helping out with the construction, unfortunately. But it won't really matter. Yeah, that advanced torpedo launcher, quite brutal. And with that build power, keeping that destroyer alive, my goodness, what a hero. Now, the reason we haven't pushed forward on the front line, I could not discern. The blue team definitely has an advantage. Absolutely no reason they shouldn't push these tanks forward and take the advantage and spread it all over the front line's defenses. A little bit of timidness. This is exactly how you lose your advantage. Clutch defeat from the jaws of victory is by stagnating when you have an advantage like this. You have to be really careful about it. These are the heat rain tanks, by the way, which I have always thought look really epic. There's a flame tank as well, the Scorcher, I believe. Oh no, the Torch. These are the Heat Tiger, the main battle tanks. They're pretty hilarious. They fire a big old heat beam. Essentially what the Salamander ended up becoming. The Salamander used to be the Alligator, turned into the Salamander when it got its heat ray cannons. I like to think that that's how Cortex development works, is they just take their different weapons and slap them on different platforms, and the ones that survive, they call it evolution because the ones that survive end up getting to come back home, and they copy down the designs and they check for bullet holes and they put armor on the places where the bullet holes are missing. Very good. Yeah, Hounds have not been trading out very efficiently here. We do have a gigantic ball of them, so eventually this will be cleaned up. Oh, those Quaker shots are beautiful. The AoE on those Quaker shots is devastating. Mass move out right here, by the way. A bunch of platypus moving across the map, but we'll zip on back to the front lines over here as more and more of those torches are rocking and rolling their way in. I feel like the pilot of this thing would say something along the lines of rock and roll. Ready to rock and roll. Something like that, I don't know. Should I become a voice actor? Bright works for Beyond All Reason voice acting, 2024. There you go. Laser Tigers also moving forward. Quite a hilarious unit. They have what is essentially a warden strapped to their head. A heavy laser, just blasting away at whatever it can. Beautiful. We're going for quite a lot of eco over here. We've put all of our most explosive buildings right on the front line here. Maybe using them as like landmines, right? Anything fast enough is going to run into them and kill itself while trying to shoot those down. Maybe that's the plan here. Is the red team going to mount any kind of a defense? Is the big question on everybody's mind. Here are the platypuses. I'm trying to catch those moving out here. The ducks have been all but ineffective over here. The mass T2 torpedoes going to be very difficult to break through. Very expensive at the very least. And here we go. A whole bunch of Marauder getting ready to run across as well. They've been put on pause right now to try and make sure that they don't move before ready. EMP bombers significantly nerfed, but still going to be good enough against a T2 army at the very least. Yeah, a bunch of those Tigers are well paralyzed, and the EMP bomber time has been increased, so when they EMP bomb something, it stays EMP'd for quite a bit longer. Makes them a different kind of powerful. It does mean you need quite a bit more of them, though, because they tend to miss their EMPs quite more frequently. There we go, though. You can see paralyzed for 18 seconds. That really is a tremendous amount of time. The labs have been enabled. The mass spam labs are going to be coming online here any second. I guess that's what we're waiting for. We're just hoping and praying that the mass labs can be well utilized. Here are those platypus ravaging the naval facilities over here. They also just overpower the defensive scorpions that have been set up. The scorpion's certainly the counter to the platypus, but there's only so much those can do against mass platypus. And here go a bunch of wind turbines. Beautiful chain reaction incoming. Pop, 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 pop. Go all the wind turbines in the main base right here of Svartalf, the Seafoam Green Commander. Beautiful little run by the platypus. Karl Bark's completely caught off guard with no units in the bank right now. We need to see a lab go down immediately to start pumping something out to try and help with this. You know what I actually wouldn't mind, though, is just these guys hanging out underneath the air wall. Well, now that those gunships are getting involved, it's a little bit less true, but hanging out underneath the air wall and shooting down those fighters actually is quite valuable. Obviously, they don't need to stay stationary under the air wall. They can move around and whatnot, but any amount of damage they can do to this air wall thins out the number and makes it way, way easier for air forces on the red team to get anything done. Marauders have been sent across, though, counterattacking while the platypus are pushing into the main base over here. And they do manage to pop the APHIS of the hot pink commander Zathrid, who is now reduced to 2 constructors and a T1 geothermal. But these bots aren't done yet. Platypus get cleaned up in the main base of the blue commander. There's also a nuclear missile launcher up and running right there. Mass pawn spam gonna start up again over here. The amount of build power available is going to make it very difficult for these Marauder to kill any one thing. But these are 2x2, meaning they will chain react just like that, sending all of the build power to Davy Jones' locker. Absolutely atrocious. One of the unfortunate things about the build power, the construction turrets, obviously, they're yeah, quite prone to explosion. Nuclear launcher up and running. Those anti-nukes should be well worth it. Oh, heavy mines being used. I want to see these. Wow, okay, yeah, those do a tremendous amount of damage. My goodness. I figured they would do maybe 50% damage, something like that. No. Those absolutely obliterated the T1 destroyers. That's crazy. Yeah, that's like 25% damage per hit right there. My goodness. Yeah, the Seafoam Commander doesn't even know what's happening here, just losing units for seemingly no reason. Oh, nuke is targeted. There it is. Nuking has been called out. Oh. Wait, I saw it change direction there for a second. Okay, no. I was just making sure. I saw it change direction. These hounds never knew what hit them. Boom! Go the hounds in red. That entire army gets blasted to oblivion. Geothermal taken down by all the missile ships, and eventually those missile boats are going to head on over towards the main base of the Tan Commander. Plenty of build power here to rebuild, but no energy production, so that's quite tough. Gonna have to switch into some T1 labs to resurrect all this. Probably going to be the right idea here. Try and get one of those fusion reactors up and running, and then scale that back into a winning position. More and more T1 bot labs coming up. My goodness, the total cost of the T1 bot labs here, 16,000 metal. Quite expensive. Will it be enough? The thing about T1 spam is it's very, very efficient to shoot down. Not very difficult to shoot down T1 spam, hardly at all. I love this naval defense. Yeah, you use the teeth to guide the units into the mass minefield. This is a really cool way to play the Navy, and we've got a T3 transition too, so now we have Marauders that are ready. No real production available here for the Seafoam Green Commander, mind you. Single constructor is available right now, but basically tons of metal in the bank, but no way to spend it. Missile boats raining down missiles from the high heavens onto the Tan Commander's base right now. Metal economy a little bit in the favor of the blue team, but the red team is making up the difference by reclaiming. Here are some Racemacs on the front, though. Those are going to cause a tremendous amount of devastation. The EMP bombers kicking in. We saw those EMP bombers in a match where the EMP rework was turned on, and they looked absolutely atrocious. But it seems like without the EMP rework, they can at least somewhat do their job. Their effect is diminished slightly, but I would still say they're probably going to be well worth it, at least 90% of the time. Sharpshooter shut down the T3 right here, but there's hardly anything else left to defend. Sharpshooter gonna start blasting away over here as much as possible anyways, but my goodness, there's only so much a single 0 sharpshooters can do. This feels like GG. This feels like the blue team only has to send their units across and this will be the end. My goodness, the tick spam is impressive. How many labs is this? How many labs is this in total? We have a grand whopping total of 28 labs set up here. Continuously building units. I guess the upside of this is you can continue providing these units to the front lines, and it still doesn't really drain your economy all too much. There's the tick spam. Oh my goodness. The ticks have been sent to deal with the Razorback. More stuff beats less stuff, but my goodness, that cannot be an efficient trade. And still the ticks managed to bring it down. Hundreds, if not thousands, if not billions of ticks swarming across the map. Hold on, I need a proper screenshot of this. Oh, that's not the button. Hold on, maybe this one? There it is. I need a proper screenshot of this. The mass fabricatory spamming out a whole bunch of different units all over the place. Different T1 trash all over the place. Should we take a second to appreciate first-person camera POV? As we get real close in here, watching the ticks hunt in mass. Devastating these poor, unfortunate laser tigers. It's beautiful. Zip on over to this direction here. Watch some of these units. I wish I could do this with the controller. I'm doing this all with mouse and keyboard movement. There's an epic grunt moving forward. He is our hero. Oh, there we go. Oh, we'll even get a Not really an FPV, is it? It's kind of like a third-person camera, but a little bit lower. Maybe I can adjust the angle. Yeah, there we go. Running headfirst into his problems. Screaming for liberty. Let's go back into our regular camera. Oh, not that. There we go. The camera gets a little disorienting sometimes. And also, it means I can't see the minimap. Marauders have pushed up the shoreline over here. Suspected this attack was incoming, but very well. We have the Marauder pushing forward. Oh, we're self-nuking. We're self-nuking. The nuke is up in the air. Oh, we might be a little too slow with it, though. The nuke is going to be coming down right here. Oh, the Marauder back off. The Marauder back off. They back off right into the nuke. Oh, there's no way. There's no way. They've ended up right in the middle of where the nuke was targeted. He's done it. He's done it with the self-nuke. My goodness. Carl Barks saving himself from complete obliteration vis-a-vis the self-nuke. My goodness. That was absolutely as close a call as it could have come. Sorry, I was super focused on the self-nuke over here. The blizzards have come in vis-a-vis the air lane established here by the purple commanders, captured the water lane, shutting down the eco for the yellow commander. Maybe I should back off of that. Why don't we go take a look at that real quick? Hold on. All right, we've backed off a couple of minutes here, maybe even just a couple of seconds here. We do have the Marauder push coming in over on the right-hand side, so this is what we just watched over here. But we do have this massive blue bombing counterattack over here. Actually, an excellent play right now from the blue commander, realizing there's probably no way that this is going to be cleaned up nicely right there. Obviously, couldn't have accounted for that self-nuke. That's a 1 in a million. But here come the mass blizzards moving in. We have, looks like in grand total, about 31 blizzards headed directly into the backline here. Fighters, absolutely no chance of doing anything about this many T2 fighters headed directly into the bases. And here comes that blue blizzard bombing run. There they go, connecting with the entire yellow production facility, taking out the build power, taking out the aphises, taking out just about everything that they had. Meaning that the eco has been significantly crippled here for the red team. Not very much eco here for the yellow commander, which does of course mean that moving forward, the red team is going to be extremely far on the back foot here. Razorback's trying to hold the front lines, but there is mass Razorback coming out right now from the green commander. And my goodness, that self-nuke absolutely saved the day right here. If those Marauder had popped the economies in the back line, I would say this game probably would have been just about evened up between the two teams. But because of that play from Carl Barks, yeah, I think the blue team has just about done it here as we watch them send the armies forward, send the T3 marching across to the enemy's domain, and doing a damn good job of ravaging everything else that remains. Missile boats raining down hellfire onto the land over here. Mass green Razorbacks, lime Razorbacks, Mountain Dew Razorbacks marching across the map and pew-pew-pewing their way to total victory. Josh Dubb, some killer D-guns. 1, 2. Oh, okay. A killer D-gun. Single killer D-gun. More bombers taking out critical infrastructure over here. The red energy plant goes down over here. Sephi trying desperately to build a rat, I believe is what that's called. Yeah, the rat. Brick with the hugest beep gun. Oh, all right. Little shy on the bombing run there, but I'm sure we can accommodate a couple more bombings. When in doubt, another bombing pass will probably knock it out. And there we go. The aphises fall for the powder pink commander. And just like that, the red team is left in tatters and shreds. I'm going to go ahead and speed it up here as we watch the remaining single red commander here. One of the single remaining red commanders get obliterated by the giant tumbleweed, and the blue team manages to clutch victory in today's game of Beyond All Reason. I really thought those Marauders had a significant chance over here, but they went forward, went back. And Sephi, if you're watching this right now, I just know you're kicking yourself in the pants. What an excellent game from all players involved. GG, of course, goes out to every single one of them, and I sure hope you enjoyed right there. Don't forget to like the video if you did enjoy. Puts Beyond All Reason and myself out there, and I appreciate it significantly, and I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.